What's up, viewers, subscribers, and agents alike, and all you COVID-19 quarantiners? For the most part, my previous video was touching bases on a lot of different things in regards to taxation, whatever the case may be. It's imperative today to know more about this information, which is vital for the most part, and it's very important to know the literacy in regards to the practices of law. Yes, the agents may not like what I'm doing, but what I'm doing is not illegal. It's extra legal processes which you can actually utilize in your own personal existence. If you take time to research and see what I'm saying, you can actually see what I'm saying is very true. Now, today in this video, I don't really have to do a disclaimer. The people who contact me in regards to the hard copies for their, what I call the hardware, they're on the way, receipts to prove it, and you will get yours in classes in session. Now, the general basis of this video right now is talking about the previous video in regards to historical references of 1933, and what I'm going to title this is The American Dream, Where Did It Go? Now, the reality is that this country has been hijacked since its inception. And from that context, most people need to really understand the historical legal reference in regards to how this process works. And without further ado, let's dig into the meat. March 9th, 1933, a day that will go down in history in infamy. Spoken on a different day, but applies more surely for this day, by Franklin Delano Roosevelt. For on this day, the Trading with the Enemies Act and the declaration of bankruptcy by the Congress of the United States, which is a corporation, as we explained in my previous video, the American dream turned into a nightmare. At this point in history, slowly but surely, the bankers proceeded by taking over the federal court system. The taking over of the American court system is now complete, as the federal court rules can now be used in state courts. Congress having never lawfully assembled, which is after Abraham Lincoln dissolved Congress, after the southern states walked out during the debate over the Civil War, which is the succession of the South, and having never been passed into positive law, because he was obviously killed before he could reinstate it, now sits outside the Constitution, just as a court system does. This is the reason for the voting registration. For registering, you are given the privilege of voting, and anyone who signs and votes in the federal elections or in any election are voting as a corporate entity, and you are agreeing that Congress has the authority to act from a foreign jurisdiction. The entire court system is now ruled by and comes under the foreign jurisdiction flag. It has a gold rope, a gold fringe around the edge, a gold eagle or a gold symbol on the top of the flag, and now some of the courts will make a mockery for the United States flag by positioning it in the vertical slope. The powers knew that all commerce is ruled by the law of contracts, better known as the UCC law. Where there's no contract, there's no case. The teaching began in school that any contract you sign is a valid contract and that you must fulfill it. This is a good saying as long as it's between two living souls, with all the contract revealed for both parties and the signatures of both parties there too. The heretical saying, good credit is the most important thing that you have, and we'll get there in a second. A valid contract has four parts. 1. Offer. 2. Consideration. 3. Acceptance. 4. The signatures by all parties for the contract. Only the parties that have signed the contract can enforce fulfilling the contract. Without the consent of both parties, a lawyer cannot settle any dispute that may arise from a lawful contract. Our Creator created man. The Creator gave man rights for forming government. Man gave government the right for forming corporations. As a man has no right nor the ability for ruling his Creator, the government has no right or the ability for ruling its Creator. An illusion is used by the democracy corporate government form and gave man an all capitalized corporate name and made him a legal fiction by writing his name in all capital letters with the middle name only an initial. The proper name for a living soul is written in upper lowercase letters, the first and middle name being the sovereign name, which is the actual birth given name by you and yours, and the last name is a family name, it's a surname, which as applied to the Anglo-Saxon concept, which was applied to people in 1066. Long story short, we'll get there later. The real name for a living soul is I, me, my, or myself. Government being a creation of mankind is only a piece of paper. As the government being a piece of paper could only create corporations, which in and of itself is only a piece of paper, neither being able to sign a lawful contract with the living soul. As all governments or corporations themselves, they do not have the ability to sign a lawful contract. For whomever would be so brave makes themselves liable for the execution of the contract, thereby losing their limited liability to prosecution for breach of contract. All corporations, then, must have someone to speak for them, and the government came up with their own solution, the lawyer, who has been appointed to speak for all corporations and courts that they have created. The government then came up with the solution to the lawful contract, and it's called the unilateral contract, or a one-signature contract. In their own description of the unilateral contract, it says that they were probably written up by a lawyer or a group of lawyers to commit fraud with the intent to extort money from the signers. The lawful problem with these contracts, aside from the fact that they only have one signature from one party to the contract, is that they have many hidden traps to which the party is not aware of its contents. In many cases, such as bank contracts, signatures for checking purposes, the contract is never shown to the depositor. All contracts pertaining to corporations signed by a one-party participant are fraud from their inception and are used to extort money from the people. They cannot be enforced except with the permission or consent by assent, which means basically you're agreeing to something by silence. From the beginning of mankind, they have the right to contract with whomever or whatever they so choose. The government then set their court system apart from the Constitution and its people, and then invites the people to contract with their court system under the foreign jurisdiction flag. To allow them to settle their disputes, of course, since a person, and that's in quotation marks, to the government described as a corporation, they then treat any living soul who contracts with their court system as a corporation, and they are a legal person, an ens legis juristic person, a slave or debtor, and cannot speak for itself. The first thing that crosses the minds of parties when receive a letter from a lawyer, attorney, counsel, or esquire stating you have been sued is to run to the phone to call another lawyer, attorney, counsel, or esquire to settle the dispute for the two corporations in their court. The judge protecting the lawyers, attorneys, counselors, and esquires, and they in turn protect the court, for they are officers of the court, which I already went over in my previous video. The system is called a legal system, meaning it is legal what they are doing. Legal only means what you're doing is with your consent. After gaining your consent, it then becomes lawful in their court system for whatever they choose to do to you. Law or lawfulness is constitutional subject matter, for no law can be enacted, or supposed to be, without an enabling clause from the Constitution of the State of the United States of America. The court does not have a contract with the party until the party gives the judge his or her name. Until that time, the judge is merely an actor in a black robe. The contract in court is trying to get the party to contract with the party under the foreign jurisdiction flag. We'll get back to that chapter in the flag in court. As the judges do not wish to file their oath of office in the courtroom, thereby acting under administrative law, whatever they want it to be. The laws passed since 1926 have all been signed by the President for the British Accredited Regency, which is the bar, from the state of New York, making all laws come under the bar, so they are nothing more than bar codes, rules, regulations, statutes, and procedures for the corporations to follow. The only way that you have to make of having a judge to uphold his office is to file their oath of office in court and to restrict him or her into the laws in which you want them to follow, which is your rightful position in regards to your status and in regards to your appellation in the judicial system. Other than that, it won't work any other way. Under this system of consent, a living soul never has to accept the ruling of a court, but they must object at all times to the action being taken. All persons spending time in prison were sent there by their own words. They did not ask for allocution. Example, judge, did you receive a fair trial? Answer, yes. The party is just being railroaded. Did your lawyer fight hard for you? Answer, yes. Do you feel that 12 years is a reasonable sentence? Answer, yes. They have just sentenced themselves to prison. This is aided and abetted by the party's lawyer, who have told the party to be nice to the judge and to give him in the sentencing phase of his trial, and tells the party that he or she understands that the judge is going to probably give him a 12-year sentence instead of the 50 that he or she could get. The other part of the problem with the laws in today's court is the total lack of laws. The charge and the intent are lumped together in one charge, and then you cannot plead innocent, you must plead guilty. not guilty, no contest, thereby giving the court jurisdiction. All of the courts have been lumped together into one court under Administrative Admiralty Court and Civil Contract and Commerce. With the advent of your plea, you go under the administrative law and any law they want to use to convict you. Trust me, been there. In order for a law to be construed as law, it must have an enacting clause from the source the law came from, i.e. king, legislature, etc. All laws proceeding from state legislatures must have an enacting clause, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Texas, yada yada, by the legislature of the state of Georgia, the legislature of the state of California. Doesn't really matter. A legislature can only introduce a bill. It cannot introduce a law. It must go through and be approved unanimous by the House, signed by the leader of the House, be approved by the Senate, signed by the leader of the Senate, approved and signed by the governor, and the bill becomes law. Now it is checked against the Constitution to find the enabling clause from which it was written. If the Constitution does not allow for the law, it must be voided from its inception. Have you ever heard a party can challenge the enacting part or the subject matter jurisdiction of a matter he is being tried for violating at any time of the trial or upon conviction while in prison? Usually it's not a law. A party is being tried for breaking a code, but a code, rule, regulation, or a breach of contract. The proper response to you have been sued is the redemption process or rejection. Returning their contract unsigned in full accord of truth in lending. Never let an attorney or lawyer send you any document without accepting it for value, or rejecting returning it without a signature in full accord with truth in lending. They may say anything to you in their first letter, and you may think it is harmless. A rattlesnake seems harmless and makes a pretty noise, but is deadly when it strikes. Have you ever heard the phrase, you don't need to respond? Don't believe it? Respond with the redemption process. Or reject. Return without a signature in full accord with Truth in Lending Act. Don't contract with third parties. Tell them to get lost and they are fired. Now, we're getting to the heart of the matter. We now understand that the government gains power of attorney over us when we are born. They take our birth certificates and make negotiable instruments out of them. We now know that through the Social Security Administration and the issuance of the number, we are recorded as a trust. And the living soul is made the trustee of the straw man the trust created. We now have in our own power today, power of attorney in fact, and we know which form to fill out for our taxes, and we basically know how to navigate through this next decade. The reason why I myself in my last video made the availability of the documentation available for people was for people to learn the process for themselves, to get away from the mystification process and get into the education process and learn this themselves. That's the most important part. Further on and furthermore and ad infinitum in the continuance of this channel development is going to be centered around teaching people about the economic and the socio-political causes of what the redemption entitles. People ask so many questions about things that they don't know much about, but they don't educate themselves about those things which they should know. And that's the vital importance of why I started my channel years ago. Years ago, I simply just expounded upon certain subjects, and I didn't really give the insight. Today, it's more of an insight because it's a more mature approach to actually giving people more insight and educational idea to regards to this process. That's the thing that most people don't really get. They don't get it, and they go back and forth between these channels, and it's your perfect conception for you to do that if you wish to. But me, myself, I like to do this in the educational, insightive form. I feel like I said before, the people who contacted me in regards to the hard copies, hey, they're on the way. They're on the way. Those people who contact me via email, whatever the case may be, they have been sent. Me, myself, I am a very straightforward person. I don't have time to waste. So if you wish to contact me with regards to actually getting this form, or you wish to contact me, please contact me via email, serious inquiries only. I don't have time to waste. Okay, people? Now, in regards to this video, I'm going to get off of the beaten path in the near future, and I'm going to go over the steps about the obstructionist tactics used by state employees and officials. I tell people usually file it online because computers simply don't really have a conscience. They do what they're told to do, so you don't have to worry about the obstructionist tactics, but there's a remedy for people who wish to go do them in person. And it's to put the court clerk or the actual individual on particular notice in regards to what it is that you're trying to actually obtain, which is your own commercial security. Sovereignty is only in the natural person. Whether or not people realize whether their nationality, ideology is affixed in their conscience, it's about the commercial side that matters the most, because it's how you interact with society. Other than that, it's just one of those situations that's just up in the air and up for discussion. Until you fix that side, then guess what? You're never going to have the actual proper result in regards to your commercial existence. So, with that being said, we'll proceed. Classes in session. And agents, you're mad. If this is your first time viewing my channel, please like and subscribe. And stay tuned, because it just doesn't stop. It's going to keep coming. People wish to contact me sometime before the end of the night, please contact me via email. We can settle the significant issues within regards to your personal life personally through email, and I keep it simple. It's simple, you know? All right? Love y'all. Subscribers, please subscribe if you haven't already. Stick tuned for the videos and the agents. You know what it is. Peace. Love y'all.